India. Awesome. Hi, Diane.
Hi, Dan.
So, we've got some interns, some people playing in the weeds. All right. Getting their hands dirty. Good to see that. Hopefully you guys are having fun. Dallas, New Jersey. All right. Oh, still a wizard's apprentice. You'll get there.
It looks like he's pivoting from being a physician. That's pretty cool.
Love it. Venezuela.
Eric, what's up, man? Good to see Eric.
Oh, hey, Eric. Very cool. Awesome. Now, for you guys that are new to the event, DSGO Connect is an event that really brings together data scientists to connect, learn, and grow as a community. I am Monica K. Royal, and I will be the moderator for today's chat. A little bit about me. I consider myself to be a data enthusiast. I am super passionate about continuous learning and sharing knowledge and resources with others. I created a platform, Nerd Nourishment, as a fun way to do just that. But that's enough about myself. Let's see. Anybody else here? Students from Egypt. Oh, that's awesome. Saudi Arabia. Very, very cool. All right. Good to see everybody. Awesome. All right. So today we're going to be talking about generating value in data and AI. Now, value here refers to the usefulness of gathered data for your business, because data in itself isn't very useful and therefore can't be too valuable. It really needs to be converted into insights and then can lead to such valuable insights and benefits. So with that said, we're going to talk about how to bring that value with data and artificial intelligence, how companies can use things such as data engineering and computer vision. And we'll also talk about some typical roadblocks that you might see when you're adopting AI or some machine learning solutions. So we have today two very special guests, which are experts in the data and artificial intelligence fields with more than 15 years of experience. So please join me in welcoming Joe Reis, the co-founder of Ternary Data, and Tobias Zwingmann, co-founder at RAPYD.AI.
Hello.
Hello.
So glad to have you guys here.
Very loud applause. Awesome.
All right. Just as a reminder, if you guys have any questions throughout the session, go ahead and use the chat and we'll get to them at the end of the session. All right. So let's get into introduction, guys. So we'll start off with 3 questions. If you can let us know. I'm sorry, that's the timer. I have the timer going so we don't go over. Okay, so introductions. 3 questions here. You want to please let us know your current professional role, the journey you took to get to where you are today, and also what are other roles that you play in the data community. And I'll go ahead and start with you, Tobias.
Okay, sure. Yeah. Hi, everyone. And thanks, Monica, for the nice intro. So yeah, excited to be here. Thanks for having the opportunity. And yeah, I'll just start answering your first question. So what I'm up to currently, I'm currently co-founder of RAPYD.AI. RAPYD.AI is an AI startup based in Germany. That's also where I live. So I'm in Germany right now. And yeah, the core mission of our business is to help companies adopt AI technologies faster and make it easier for them to build AI-powered prototype solutions. And yeah, as a co-founder, I'm pretty much involved into everything. So I'm also basically owning the AI technologies that we offer, but I'm also very much involved in like building out the whole product and the whole marketing around it. So yeah, as everyone who has founded a startup pretty much knows, then in the beginning you are pretty much busy with everything. So I would say at the moment, I'm focused on helping companies to adopt AI technologies to get values out of that. And like looking backwards, like what did I do? How does my journey look like? So I've worked for the past 15 years in a corporate setting, and my data science career started back in 2016. Originally, I have a bachelor degree in business administration, did a master degree later on in IT management. This was the first time when I got into like actually programming languages, and that back then was programming with R as a scripting language. And this also like opened up the doors for providing this opportunity for me to get into data science. And at the beginning, I was like very technical there, like doing heavy SQL queries, using R as a programming language to do things like customer churn analysis. So a lot of data science things which are related to customer and marketing analytics. But then later on, like developed more into a role where I was owning data strategy initiatives and also strategic data science use cases. And then last year, founding my own startup with RAPYD.AI. So that's what I currently do and how I got here.
Very awesome. Thank you, Tobias. Are you serving any other roles in the data community?
Yeah, one role that I'm serving currently is I'm mentoring. I'm a data science mentor for a company called Springboard. So this is where I help data science students basically on their data science journey and help to find a good pathway for developing a own data science career. So that's what I also do is mentoring in data science.
Very nice. Thank you so much, Tobias. How about you, Joe?
Yeah, Joe Reis, recovering data scientist, co-founder, CEO of Ternary Data. So we're a data engineering consulting firm based in Salt Lake City, Utah, but we serve the entire globe really these days. So we help companies build solid foundations for data, right? So I come from data science, ML, analytics, and so forth. I think what I realize is companies don't build a foundation for data typically. They just kind of jump headfirst into doing ML, then deal with that as they go along. So my journey into data, it's interesting. I mean, I've kind of always worked in data in some capacity for almost 20 years now. So I guess I've just always done it, even before it was the cool thing to do. When I was in it, it was very uncool, actually. So I always joke, it was kind of like if you ever watch Office Space, like Milton, the guy with the red stapler, it was like him. That's what data people were back in the day. And now it's obviously different. There's whole conferences on this, which is kind of cool. The conferences back in the day weren't as cool as they are now. So other roles I have in the data community, I mean, I mentor a lot of people, kind of informally, but what else? Run a bunch of meetups, Utah Data Engineering meetups, Salt Lake City Python. What else? I just have a pretty active role in the community in some way, shape, or form. So
awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
All right. Now, to get into the meat of the chat, let's start out by asking how can companies start with AI? And I'll ask that to Tobias.
Yeah, it's a good question, and actually, like one of the questions that we also address with RAPYD.AI. I would say like the first thing that companies have to consider, or people working in companies have to consider, is like, what's the overall purpose, right? Because you have companies who really are looking for this like transformational impact of artificial intelligence, like think dimensions like, Tesla or Amazon or Facebook, right? They want to have like this transformational value out of artificial intelligence. And of course, if you want to do that, then you got to start with the basics, right? I mean, you have to hire great people for that. You have to release a bunch of big resources. You have to collect your own data. You have to own the whole pipeline, and literally, do a heavy investment into those things. But having that said, like not every company on the planet is Tesla or Facebook, right? So there is this huge chunk of small and medium-sized and even larger companies who I would say would just want to kind of improve their business or maybe make their products a little better or overall have a better customer experience for their customers and their people. And this is the segment that we also address with RAPYD.AI. And what we tell them is, like, the first thing that you need to do in order to get started with AI is to understand what AI currently is. Because there is this huge misconception still, I think, like, when you talk with people who are not in the field about artificial intelligence, they still think about like categories like robots or anything that will destroy humanity, right? Or singularity is a topic that comes up. But I think at the first place, you need to be really like straight about the points, like what AI currently is. I mean, when we talk about AI in a business setting, we typically talk about like narrow AI, things like machine learning, maybe deep learning. And there are certain application areas where you can use those tools. And I would say, like, the first thing, if you want to get started with AI, is to be clear about what AI is, what it can do, and what fields AI in the business world actually covers, to have a sort of a compass to orientate yourself. And then in the next step, identify like value areas or business cases that you can use for your company, and then start with that. But that's the next step. So first thing is, let's understand the whole concept behind it, and just like, forget about all the robots and stuff for the moment.
That is a good point. You would definitely need to start by knowing what AI is.
The Terminator is really tempting, though, right? So
it really
and
is.
Matrix is also, is also tempting.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, Hollywood has taught us, right, like what AI is, and it will like kill humanity in the end. And like, especially like, that's my experience, right? If you also talk with business executives, like, AI is like either like the savior of everything, like it can help with everything, like, or it's just like completely useless and will destroy everything, and just don't do that. But there is this kind of huge value area in between, which is oftentimes around like automation, or also like finding patterns in order to improve your existing products or processes. And you want to have this discussion centered around that. And in the end, you might find out that your initiative might not be AI in the end, ultimately, but something else. But it will be still like generating a lot of value for you. So I would say, like, this is the right start for that, to have a realistic expectation of what AI can do and where it can help you. And then which tools to use to get started.
That's a good point. So on top of understanding what AI is, it also sounds like you might need to build a foundation first. So how would you build that foundation for AI? I'm going to ask that to Joe.
I echo a lot of what Tobias says. I think, understanding your use case and like the tools you might want to use or be tempted to use, like AI, I think there's a lot of misnomers around it. Like this morning, I was reading in my local paper, a news station, whatever. They talked about machine learning analytics being used to determine what demographics were most susceptible to COVID. And I looked at the actual paper they cited, and they said we use multiple regression. But the journalist felt that machine learning was somehow more a multivariate regression, right? So that seemed to be more, I guess, easier to understand than machine learning. I don't know, or less, but either way. So that's just an example today. I just noticed it this morning, right? So I think first understanding, like, what are you trying to do, and like what, I think from there trying to figure out the tools you need. But a data foundation, really, it comes down to, I split these into two categories, though, right? So there's kind of the stuff that you use for exploratory data analysis, but then there's stuff you'd use in production. And that really determines kind of, I think, where you're going to be using AI, if ever. So production use cases are only, I think, when you have the maturity and the use case to really put the investment into building out actual AI serving systems, for example. But maybe some other foundational pieces, like just go to analytics. I would say understand your data. That's number one. If you don't understand your data, then you probably aren't going to have a fun time with AI. So that's the first thing I would look at. So probably a bunch of other stuff I left off, but yeah.
No worries. Both of you guys mentioned tools. How important are specific tools to use, and how do you choose what is the right tool?
What do you think, Tobias?
Yeah, I think, talking about tools, for me, it's not so much talking about like, do you use Tableau or use Python or R? Like, when I think about tools, I think in categories like, what can you do in order to ship a first prototype or first proof of concept really fast? Because our experience is that once you identify this value area for AI, let's say you said, okay, you have the idea, because that's one typical use case that we cater, right? You have the idea that you want to count people in a supermarket, or you want count people in a public space or something like that, right? And you want to challenge AI if this is possible with AI or not. What you want to do is to find a tool that helps you to get this first validation quickly if this is possible or not. And in terms of AI, there are typically 3 concepts you can apply to find out those first prototypes. The first is AutoML. The second is using pre-trained models, and the third one is using AI as a service, state of the off-the-shelf AI services you can just plug and play and try to see if they work. And what do you use in order to access those tools? This is kind of up to you, but I would think about tools in those kind of categories. What can you use to really get the job done fast? And having this job defined up front, what do you want to challenge? What do you want to analyze? What do you want to find out? What do you want to test? This is the actual, the core of the question. And actually, most naturally, that's my experience, the tools will follow, right? So, and you will find out what you'll need pretty soon.
I'd also say there's probably some anti-patterns for tools, right? So the anti-pattern would be definitely open up, PyTorch and just go all in on that from day one, right? Definitely ignore using pre-trained models or cloud services, for example, right? Definitely avoid getting an easy win. Try doing it the hard way. So if you could just avoid taking that approach, which I see a lot of people doing, it's oh, my use case is so special, I obviously have to hand code this. It probably isn't. I think to Tobias's point, there's a lot of great services out there. Just use them and work from level of difficulty down, right? So lowest level to highest level.
Or just in addition to that, there are a lot of people, like me included, right? I cannot totally understand that, right? You have spent so much time learning all those concepts, right? Learning so much about all those algorithms, and now there is this kind of AutoML, right? Which says, okay, you can just upload your data, hit predict, and then get a pretty good model out of it. That just seems too easy, right? And honestly, if we're talking about real production settings, and if we're talking quenching out the last accuracy and everything, that might be true. But if you are still in the phase of actually validating your idea and finding out if this is if this is a good use case for your business, then you don't want to show your arsenal, right? You don't want to show what great things you can do, right? You want just to iterate quickly, because my experience, most data initiatives don't fail because the model is too bad or so, but especially larger corporations, the whole setup just doesn't fit, right? Maybe you don't have a good data governance in place. Maybe you don't have good data pipelines. We built a churn model, and then in the end, the question was, okay, what do we do with the predictions, right? Who's going to bring actions based on that prediction? So, and this is, and you want to answer those questions before you make the heavy investment in, open up your arsenal of data science tools and going down that rabbit hole.
For sure. And if you're dealing with structured data, I would say Excel is actually a pretty good tool. I keep things really lo-fi, honestly, until you can understand your data well enough, I think, to start figuring out whether or not machine learning, for example, is going to be a good fit for you. Keep it low fidelity. There's no sense in busting out, a gigantic nuclear arsenal when all you need is a pellet gun. So, you can always go, more hardcore, but that's at a cost, right? And to me, that's at opportunity cost. There's a lot of blind spots and a lot of dead ends with respect to understanding your data and understanding how that reflects in your business problems. So again, start as lo-fi as possible, and you can always go more advanced if you want. But all too often, I see people take the, especially beginners, they take the opposite approach, where it's because you have all these cool skills. Let's use them, right? Let's go into deep learning automatically. Maybe that's appropriate, maybe not, but I think you just got to know enough to save yourself. So,
and maybe in addition to that, I think one reason for that is also I observed that with online boot camps, for example, where students have to build capstone projects, for example, right? Because if you do those capstone projects, of course, you want to showcase your skills, what you can do, right? How you are able to train a model. So, you just don't create a capstone model where you just call an API, right? That does there's the recommendation for you, right? You just don't do that. But in a business setting, right, things kind of change, right? No one's really interested in your cool skills anymore, but what you need to do is like you need to move fast and generate that value.
For
Again,
sure.
like given you're still in that phase of like prototyping and finding out. I mean, if you're working on autonomous driving for Tesla, I know that might be a different story.
Right.
But we're not in this scenario right now. At least most companies are not.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more prone to hire somebody or promote somebody who can solve problems quickly and execute well on that. You don't get any points for stalling.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, starting small. And do you think that's a factor to having a successful project to bring value, is to start small and then build upon that rather than just going all in?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, think of the opposite approach. If you went all in from day one, you're risking a lot of political capital and I think a lot of reputational capital all at once on something that might not pan out. Plus, you're just wasting a lot of opportunity costs, right? That's time you could spend on something that's more useful. So yeah, I always say start simple, start low fidelity. What are your thoughts, Tobias?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Opportunity cost, take the time that you save on your, don't training a fancy model. Take this time communicating to all other stakeholders in the project, because especially in corporate settings, there are like a bunch of people involved. You want to talk to them. You want to explain your solution. You want to find out if this actually brings value, how it can be implemented in the end. How will you monitor if this really, performs better than the current status quo? Can you actually beat the baseline? How do you measure that? These are all things that you typically need to, or somebody needs to come up with, right? If you have someone on the team who is answering those, asking those questions, then great. If you don't have anyone, then you need to do that. So yeah, and this is, I would say definitely the right approach. So to start small, and then, you can add complexity if you need.
Awesome, great. How can a company unlock the value with AI? Do you have any examples of projects that have been successful in providing such value? I'd start with you, Tobias.
Yeah, I think one very good use case, or a typical use case that we see, is definitely using computer vision for just basically recognizing things that are going on in images. And the most obvious thing here is to count things. So especially if you have operators of parking lots, or if you work in a company that is trying to count vehicles, for example, or count any standard objects, which are pretty well, recognizable by AI services, then this can be really a kind of a quick win to do that. Because the good thing about AI as a service, or computer vision in particular, is there isn't really a good baseline before, right? I mean, the status quo might be that there are literally people looking at images trying to analyze what's going on there. To give you an example, we had a customer who was working for a big producer of goods in supermarkets, right? And they went to that company, who had people going around in supermarkets taking photos of the shelves and then counting the items that are displayed on the shelf. And this was used then in later on by people to look at those items on the shelf, to count them and report back to the manufacturer to say we got 80% of the shelf space, something like that. I mean, these are big topics in retail. I didn't know, but obviously it seems like it's the case, right? So, and these are things where AI can really help you, right? Because you don't have to have people looking at those images. You can try to train your own AI, or use a pre-trained AI model, and then come up with those counting procedures quickly. Or counting cars. I mean, counting cars is such a universal use case for so many companies for whatever reason, right? Fleet management or traffic management, whatever. But AI services nowadays are pretty good at recognizing cars. So that's one of the, I would say, byproducts of autonomous driving. So if you have a good AI as a service, they are probably very good at spotting cars and images. So yeah, there might be those quick wins where companies can really leverage that the existing baseline is not data driven and is involves a lot of human effort and repetitive effort, and this is where AI can actually be a great advantage, or at least help to have some increasing value.
Very fascinating use cases for sure. Do you have any examples, Joe?
He covered a lot of good ones, I think. I think just any place where you see places to automate is a good place for either heuristic-based systems or ML, AI, right? So Scoring is another place I think where you could probably get some leverage with machine learning, just pattern recognition and kind of lead gen type stuff. We see that pretty often, but it depends on the use case. But I think and Tobias hit it on the head. Anything where you see like things that aren't scalable for humans to do or requires rapid attention and is monotonous, that's a candidate for automation with AI. So.
Certainly. What about the roadblocks? What type of roadblocks do you guys see when you're trying to implement or adopt any AI or machine learning solutions? Joe, do you have any insight here?
Yeah, I mean, I think just lack of a foundation and lack of willingness to set the foundation, I think is the ones that we run across. And that's kind of, I think, multifaceted, right? So it's either executives really just want to go start doing AI. And I'm like, that's cool. I want to do that too. But unfortunately, there might be some prerequisites involved. I want to be an Olympic athlete too, right? But I'm not going to get there just sitting on my couch all day. So I think it's just kind of understanding the prerequisites involved in doing it, especially in production. I would say are the things that kind of get in the way. It's an education process, but I think it's also an organizational willingness to want to do this. Because there's a lot of flashy, I think, kind of FOMO around AI. Like if everyone else is doing it, so if I'm not doing it, I'm not cool, or I'm not going to my competitor's going to kill me, or some sort of game theory like that. And I think that gets in the way. I think it's more just the eagerness to get started too early, which is fine. I think if you're working on exploratory examples, when it comes to production, I think you really got to take the time and do it right. But it's hard. It's human behavior. You want to move fast in the areas where you probably shouldn't.
Yeah. You want the need and support of everybody in the organization for it to kind of come together and work.
It helps. Yeah. I mean, it's just everyone wants to get rich quick, right?
Yep.
So,
yeah.
Because why not? That sounds awesome.
How about you, Tobias? What roadblocks have you ran into?
Yeah, completely agree to like what Joe said. First thing is, lack of understanding also leads to a lack of identifying good like use cases or especially business cases, right? I mean, there might be people who have a good idea of, what AI can do, but still, that's just the first part. In the end, what you want to have is a good business case, right? You want to make sure that the output is higher than the input that you put into that. And it's kind of hard to find that out previously, especially if you don't have any experience with AI, because like many AI projects are kind of still like open-ended, right? It's very hard to plan them, right? They can work, they can fail. It's hard to say, right? And if you hire a bunch of data scientists, right, and you find out that your problem isn't being solvable with AI, you better have some other candidate problems at hand, because otherwise, it will be difficult. And then I would add maybe two things. Like one thing is like lack of skilled people, especially if you talk about like large-scale AI applications. And then that also comes down with the lack of data. And lack of data probably would be even higher if you had more people, because they would identify that there is this lack of data. So,
that's a good point, though. The hiring, the people part is, I think, something that's huge right now. Like finding good talent, experienced talent, that is a big crux right now.
Yeah, and also keeping it, and also keeping it. Like if I look at my network, like how often people are changing their jobs, I'm just thinking like if you're at one company for 1.5 years, I mean they have just onboarded you and you're leaving again.
Right.
So it's very difficult for them. But that's an issue probably.
That's how it is. It's how it is.
Yeah.
So.
Very awesome. Thank you guys both. One last question I have with the content that's sort of off topic, but I'm very curious to know, Joe, why are you a recovering data scientist?
I mean, I've been in this space for a long time, I would say, and I think that term struck about like 2015, I think. I started getting labeled that. I think it was maybe the Ben Taylor crew or something. We all kind of hung out with each other, and I think we started calling each other that, or somebody called me that. I can't remember how it went, but in either case, it was informed by just, I think, my direct experiences working on particularly automated machine learning back in the early 2010s, and just how hard it was, right? And then I got, kept looking at the field, and I was like, it's not getting any easier, actually, because in my opinion, real machine learning, not just some toy example, like that requires engineering, right? Even feature engineering, like that's an engineering problem at scale. And so, I think I just got kind of disillusioned with the hype that was going on around the time, where like data science is the sexiest job of the 21st century. I mean, even early on, I was kind of like, I guess I was a bit skeptical. So it was kind of funny. I just saw an article on LinkedIn the other day where they were talking about how somebody talked about how the term data science might be going, it might be kind of diluted a bit now. So I don't know where it goes, but yeah, it's partly humorous, partly cynical, and partly just me being probably a curmudgeon. So
I like that, curmudgeon.
yeah, so old and cranky, I guess. So
you mentioned engineering. What is data engineering?
I mean, data engineering, I really think sits before data science. So if you look at the data lifecycle in its entirety, generating data, exploring it, and so forth, it really sits between like getting data from source systems and then making it useful for data scientists and analysts, right? So I think that's where a data engineer fits in, is building the systems, the infrastructure, the processes, and the underlying governance, orchestration, everything else that makes data scientists succeed. So basically, if you think about the common statistic that you hear, where data scientists spend 80% of their time cleaning data, getting data, getting frustrated with data, everything else, that should be the data engineer's job, actually. So you should flip the funnel where, maybe 10 to 20% of your time is spent doing that exploratory stuff or cleaning data, but really you should spend 80, 90% of your time doing the stuff that you really should be doing, which is algorithms, modeling, analysis, and so forth. So I think data engineers should ideally help flip the funnel, so data scientists aren't, doing the cliched 80% of their time, basically doing grunt work. So,
good point.
We'll see if we get there. So.
All right. It looks like we have some questions from the audience. You guys want to dive in there?
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
Let's just pick one out. Let's do it.
Okay. Anthony Fedler asks, there's so much time wasted in big costs on data science initiatives where they spend large amounts to build teams, but have minimal results deployed. What best ways to assess these increments?
Go for it, Tobias.
I'm still reading the question. What's the best way to assess these increments? I think like once a company has really decided to invest into data science and into analytics, I mean, there's almost no way out of that again. So once you have that heavy investment made, the only thing you want to make sure, and the only thing you want to make, like you want to guarantee, is that there's an alignment between the team that you hire, probably they're good people, and the business objectives that you have. And just try to then kind of get rid of like performance measures that are limited to like machine learning or data science. Like, even if you have a data science team and they don't do machine learning, it's fine, right? It's fine if they produce value for the organization. And like the best way to assess these increments, I would say, is like to have your people, to allow your people to give them the flexibility to develop and to progress, right? And to increase the output and to come up with better and better results, whatever that might be, right? And this might not involve machine learning in the first place. That's totally okay if it's not the case.
Those are really good points. I think providing the psychological safety to fail as well is part of the process. Because I think the word wasted may be a bit. Sometimes I agree with it, and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I just think it's misapplied. Like maybe they don't have a direction, and so I think you got to pick a direction and support the team. Like these are hard to find people, and it's a good investment if you can channel it correctly. And if you can't, then I guess you made a bad investment. But I would definitely figure out like how you could leverage the team better. So I mean, I've been on these types of teams before, and I've seen countless of these. They sometimes work if they're given the right direction and fostering and support. But when they fail, it's because they aren't given support, and they're just seen as like a leakage of money and just a total waste of time. And that's when you should just I think go back to the drawing board and really assess, is it you as a company that's failing and wasting time, or is it the team? Because you have a lot of talent, right?
And sometimes that's what I observed. It's also about like the way these teams are organized. I've seen many companies building up those like so-called data labs, right, where they hire a bunch of like data scientists, and they try to build like data products or new solutions in parallel to the existing organizations. For example, the business intelligence team, right? So you have those two teams working basically on the same overarching goal, like create value out of data, but like with two different languages and also two different lines of businesses. And if you find out that this is not working, maybe you should try to kind of, just combine them, or, have at least a more thorough collaboration between different parts within the organization. I mean, they are already part of your organization, right? So maybe it's good to team them up better.
Yeah, I would consider, every time I've managed a team, I consider any failure of the team as a failure on my part, right? Like I didn't scope the project well enough. I didn't give my team support. I always look in the mirror first and understand, like, where did I go wrong before I blame the team and say, well, you guys just are a waste of money and time and humanity, and you should all just leave. So,
yeah, good point.
Again, it sounds like you need the need, the want, and then that support to really come together to be successful. Perfect. Awesome. All right. Next question here comes from Rana Mohammed. She is currently going to university in AI department and asking, what is the best way to improve my knowledge in AI? Do you guys have any good resources that you can share?
Like apart from the courses you're taking? Because I would hope that you're learning a lot in your courses, and
it does. She's in university and taking courses already. I mean, I do that too. Just gather as much resources as you can to learn.
Go Tobias.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say, like, I kind of repeat myself, but I definitely, especially if you're coming from like an academic background or universities or so, and you're learning how to do all those like AI models or machine learning models like from scratch. I mean, just try to sign up for AWS, Azure, and Google, and just see what's there ready to use, right? And not just to like benchmark it against your own solution, but just to see how production grade solutions look like, because those services, they are production ready, right? You can use a service like Google Cloud Vision AI or AWS Poly or cognitive services from Azure. These are production grade solutions. You can use them. And just by, for example, seeing how a response object looks like, when you query those AIs and what kind of responses you get from them and how they are different, I think this is a great, this gives you a great learning curve, because you will see how those systems look like in production. I mean, not every company is using those AI services, but some are. So you have the ability, like with no cost, right? I mean, it's free of charge to just sign up for those and just to try them out. And then you will have at least an intuition how production grade systems are looking like, and how the documentation looks like for those systems, for example. Because otherwise it's very, very difficult to just see like production grade systems, because they are hidden in enterprises.
Right.
Those technologies give you the like a sneak peek in how it looks like, and how it could look like later on. And maybe that helps, just to increase your scope.
Give a shout out to Full Stack Deep Learning, my friend Josh Tobin. I think that's a good one to go check out too. It's a class he teaches at Berkeley, but it's also online. I think that's a great one to go check out for extracurricular stuff. I think that's awesome. And then the MLOps community, I would say, is a great Slack group to join if you want to kind of get the other side of machine learning and AI, where it's practitioners focusing on ops and ML engineering, for example. I think that's really where everything's going, is ML engineering, ops, that kind of a field really. So I would say get current in that. I think the days of like learning how to deploy models and stuff like it's a solved problem for a lot of cases. To Tobias's point, you can find APIs and stuff that off the shelf that'll do a lot of cool stuff. So figure out where you can leverage yourself in the ML food chain, because it's not just models anymore. It's really the engineering and the ops behind it. So. But you're not going to learn that in university, probably, right? That's kind of the thing, because the university curriculum tends to be, a bit behind unless you're at like a Berkeley or Stanford or something. So, but the nice thing is you have access to all these materials these days. There's no boundaries. So.
Exactly. So you have your courses coupled with getting your hands dirty should really help you learn things. Thank you. All right. Next question. When your clients don't have consistent data and or haven't really started collection, what planning resources would you share with them?
Tobias and I work in such different areas of data, so I'd be curious to know what you're doing, Tobias.
So like there is this one methodology. It's called the AI design sprint that we refer sometimes. It's similar to like the design sprint that you know from a product management perspective. So it's a very good tool to scope AI projects, to identify areas where you need to like improve. For example, your as you said, the data layers, or where you say, okay, you have everything in place to kind of come up with a quick win, to find that match. This is a pretty good tool to just gather a team from different angles of your business, spend a week or so, and then you just run through those stages of that sprint methodology. So that might be a good take to start with that. Yeah, as a planning resource to scope the project and identify the areas where you need to improve.
I like that a lot. I don't have much to add to that really either. I think it's, I understand your need, understand what's available, do an audit and fill in the gap. I think it's pretty much how you have to do it. So one thing you might want to try too is synthetic data. That's something I think I see more increasingly to sort of fill in the gaps if you want to try and get some wins without having to collect data, because that could take a long time. But if you can kind of cheat, and use synthetic data, then you might be able to, at least get some leverage out of that. And I think that might push you further along, because otherwise you do have to collect data, and that's that might be easy, it might be difficult. Who knows? Depends on your use case.
That's
you can't invent data out of thin air, right? I mean, you could, but that would be, at least in the world I'm in, that might be fraudulent too. So,
I like that synthetic data. Can you explain more about that and how it's used? Where do you get that?
Yeah, just make fake data sets that represent kind of, what you're going to be using in the real world. So, there's companies, I mean, you can use like mock data. I think Mockaroo is a good tool actually for structured data. Where you need to watch for is like kind of imbalance of your data sets, making sure, that the types of data you're dealing with, the labels are correctly distributed according to what you think your data is going to be like, which is a chicken and egg problem because you wouldn't know until you look at your data. So, but in lieu of anything else, I would say collect data and then use fake data to at least sort of mock the problem out. At least sort of, I think, get a sense of kind of what you want to do in lieu of not having data, right? So, because otherwise you have no data, and then I guess there's nothing to talk about because you have no data upon which to do science. And so then you're just bored.
Yeah, there's for example, if you're using R as a programming language, there's this cool package called Faker. It's what you can do, basically just take a data set and we'll create fake data based on the properties of this data set. I think there's something similar for Python, but I don't know the name.
Yeah, it's Faker as well as a Python
it's
package.
Also Faker for Python. Yep. Okay, yeah, I just know the R version, but
yeah, it's cool. And then there's companies like Y-Data out of Portugal. I think they're doing a good job with commercializing synthetic data. So I think you're going to see a lot more synthetic data, especially with respect to compliance, right? So data scientists, maybe you shouldn't have them working on production data sets, actually. Maybe you really should have them working on fake data sets and just make a model that would work in the real world.
Yeah,
right.
Especially if you're based in Europe, sometimes you're just not allowed to work on data which is, for example, has personal data in there, right? You just you can't do it unless you have the opt-in from the people. So having mock data to use there it's a good opportunity.
Mm-hmm. The question that Colin had, what was the Josh Tobin course name? It was Full Stack Deep Learning, I think it is. Full Stack Machine Learning or something. Just Google it. So.
Thank you, Joe.
Yep.
All right. Next question from Phil Fry. On the flip side of some of the challenges that you discussed, I have seen organizations put off analytics until they have fixed all of the underlying data layers. What do you suggest to them?
I would say user analytics is sort of a diagnosis of whether or not your data is fixed. So, you can use that as a check. I mean, I'm doing this right now with a client, actually. Their data pipeline is broken. The only way we can tell if it works is to look at the data and see if it matches the source system. So I guess, how else would you know that you're fixing your data layers, right? So I don't know if you have any thoughts on the Tobias.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I experience is to just be clear about the people who are looking at this, like this data, because there might be really irritation if like the wrong people look at this and think, okay, like this BI dashboard is messed up, right? Or the data is wrong. Like this can have bad impacts, such as like they don't trust other data in your BI system, something like that. So just like have this somewhere encapsulated in a particular area where you know that, there might be flaws, but then I'm completely, on the side of Joe here, just try to use what you have in order to nail down the problem and identify the area where you need to improve yourself or your organization.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of read between the lines in this question too, and I sense there might be some busy work attached to it. Like, oh, we're just going to put off analytics until we get the data layer. But what I normally see happen is like you never get to analytics if that happens, right? It's kind of like, I'm gonna lose weight as soon as I'm done like finishing like this whole box of Twinkies or something. Like it's not going to happen. I'll do it someday though. Don't worry about it. But yeah. It's kind of like one is prerequisite for the other. So I don't know, but I have seen this a lot where I think it's like, oh, we're gonna focus on the fixing the data pipelines, for example. But again, it's sort of like you want to check your outputs to make sure everything works. But again, that's your call, not mine. So
exactly, everyone's always trying to get their ducks in a row before they can start anything, but.
Yeah, and it's the old like good is great is the enemy of good or done or something, right? So I'm of the opinion I'm more of a person of just I like to get things done, and maybe it's not perfect, but at least I get results, right? Because if you're working on your data layers constantly, what kind of value is that adding? Maybe it will, but again, I just seen it too often where it just doesn't go anywhere because that becomes the project. So
great point. You have to get to the value somehow by starting.
Yeah.
All right. Next question. What's your take on the relationship between academia and industry, especially with respect to data management planning? Tobias, do you have anything here?
With respect to data management planning, I think you always kind of have that gap between like academia and the industry, but I would say like the biggest thing is that at least in the companies that I have seen is there is just not something like clean data catalog or like a super 100% data management system in place. It's just not there, and you can also, but on the other hand, you also can't wait for it to be there, right? I mean, these are initiatives which just take years, so you kind of like have to work with what's there, right? So it's about like finding compromises, and as I mentioned before, finding areas where you can apply data science to what's there literally, right? Because like when you say, okay, you want to have good data management in your company and you want to improve that, I mean, these are also resources that you need to get, right? These are like top level management decisions that need to be made, because like maintaining a good data catalog like costs a lot of money. So you want to have a good business case for that investment. So, and like what like people typically do is, to start with some quick wins or some first solutions just to demonstrate that it's possible to generate value. And and that's what I would focus on, right? And again, like this might not involve machine learning, but other things, maybe just like descriptive analytics or coming up with some good insights, or maybe creating a BI dashboard where the novel approach is not the actual analysis, but maybe the data engineering behind that, right? The type of data or the amount of data that you process or whatever, right? It might not be necessarily the modeling part, but maybe just like getting data from A to B. This is sometimes really, really hard, especially in corporate settings where things are not documented.
Right.
So, yeah.
I actually teach at a university too, so I got a review from a student, and it's like, oh, he's just giving examples from what he does at his job, and I'm like, yeah, I did, because and unapologetically, right? Because these are things that I see in the real world coming up over and over, and so I think I was talking to actually a curriculum director the other day at a university about how to redesign their analytics curriculum. I think the professors right now, they want to sort of teach very modular concepts, but not look at the entire picture. And I think to kind of not answer the question that was asked, but to sort of zoom out and understand the relationship between academia and industry in general, I would say I would like curriculum to more focus on the entire life cycle of data and different approaches in there using modern techniques, and not so much focus on here's how you use a naive Bayes classifier in R. Like, I don't think anyone actually cares about that in the industry anymore. What they do care about is can you manage the life cycle of data? Do you understand it? Do you know how to approach it? To me, that's a more useful use of academic time. But then it becomes a trade school, and academics have an aversion to that. So, but that's also why I teach, right? I was brought in precisely because of my industry experience. I mean, I only have a bachelor's degree, but I teach grad school, right? I think that's for a good reason, because I have I think a unique perspective on what works. So, yeah, but anyway. So it didn't answer the question at all, but gave my 2 cents. So you're welcome.
I'm on mute. Sorry. Thank you so much for that. We unfortunately have run out of time for the audience questions, but we can record those and send them to Joe and Tobias to answer on the side afterwards. I hope that you guys are good with doing that. So we'll get your questions answered afterwards. With the last 5 minutes, I do want to ask 3 more outro questions. So what would you say are the main takeaways for today? Do you have any advice for aspiring entry-level data scientists? And also let us know where we can find you, whether that be on LinkedIn or other social media platforms. All right, go ahead, Joe first.
Cool. I think the takeaways today, I mean, it's crazy how Tobias and I are pretty much in sync on, I think, on almost everything in this conversation, right? I think start simple, keep it simple, strive for simplicity, wherever else you can be simple. Don't try and boil the ocean, I would say. You can get a lot of wins using off-the-shelf tools right now. You don't need to, you can flex, and I think, go really hardcore and handcraft everything, but I just don't think it's necessary early on. What was your second question? Sorry.
Any advice that you have for aspiring data scientists?
Advice: get good mentors. I know it's easier said than done, but there's a lot of good communities out there where you can find people to work with, collaborate with people, I would say, and read a lot too. There's no shortage of great materials out there that you can learn from. So that's about it. And then I guess where you can find me, I'm on LinkedIn at Joseph Reis or something like that. Just find me. Pretty easy to find. Ternary Data is also where you can find me. And also on YouTube, the Ternary Data YouTube channel has a lot of our podcasts and interviews with top people in data. So, and at Data Science Go, I tend to be a regular here, I guess, now. So
thank you so much, Joe.
Of course.
How about you, Tobias?
Yeah, I think that was a great wrap up. So actually, I don't have that much to add. So yeah, keep it simple at the beginning. Then I would say have that tendency towards action and problem solving. So don't get too much involved into showing off what you can do, but trying to solve a concrete problem. And then, yeah, maybe the third thing is, as Joe said, the worst thing you could do, also as an advice for learners, is just to lock yourself in and say, no, I'm learning data science for 6 months and just watching YouTube videos and doing some coding exercises. I mean, just get involved. The community is really, really friendly. I think there are hardly any communities out there, just like the data community. So it's very easy to reach people and to interact with people, get in touch with people. So leverage that, right? Doesn't matter where you are in this world, so you can just leverage that. And I think this is one of the biggest leverage probably that you have to launch a career. So yeah, that would be my my advice.
Awesome.
And
where can we find you, Tobias?
Oh yeah, I'm also on LinkedIn, Tobias Zwingmann. LinkedIn / Tobias-Zwingmann. That's my LinkedIn profile. And of course, RAPYD.AI, if you want to check out our company, you'll also find me there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Joe and Tobias, for coming and speaking with us. And thank you to the audience for listening in. And we look forward to seeing you at DSGO Virtual, which is next month on October 15th. So hopefully see you there.
Thanks, everybody. It's been fun.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Monica, also.
Pleasure.